So you're a doomsday prepper. Congrats. I bet you stockpiled lots of food and water and supplies to survive the crash of civilization. Heck, there's even a lot of people out there that relish the idea. And if that's you, what is it about social collapse that you find enticing? Maybe it's not having to go to work every day, or not having to pay a mortgage. Or maybe it's just the hope of eliminating overcrowding and our addiction to technology that makes you crave a return to the Stone Age. I have to admit, some of that sounds pretty nice. But with that comes a whole lot of new problems that most people don't want to think about. So while you may like the idea of anarchy, here's what life after an SHTF situation will really be like. First thing is that while maybe you're not having to go to work every day, you are going to be working every waking minute of every day. You're going to have to spend that time hunting and gathering and just trying to survive. There's not going to be any waking up in the morning and sitting in your easy chair and taking a relaxing approach into the morning. Depending on the season, you're going to have to spend your day either looking for food, looking for heating fuel, or just gathering the supplies that you need to get through a few more days. And you will quickly realize that if you're not doing that, there's going to be some very lean times. It'll take about a week for that to get old. Not long into this process, you are suddenly going to realize just how tired you are all the time because you're constantly having to go. There will be very little time for sitting back and just enjoying some downtime and time to think. And the thing about it is, if you're sitting down with time to think, you're probably thinking about where you need to go next to find the things that you need. The next problem you're going to encounter is that medical dependency is going to be a really hard problem to solve when there is no supply chain. Nobody is going to be making or delivering the drugs that you need, especially if whatever condition you suffer from is rare. Sure, somebody's probably going to be making and selling easy to produce medications that they can scalp for high prices, but that selection is going to be limited. And drugs that require refrigeration are going to be the first thing to go. If you or someone you love is an insulin-dependent diabetic, they're probably not going to make it for very long. Insulin does not last long, especially if it's not refrigerated, and without power and the ability to keep it cool, it's going to go bad quick. But then you also have to consider that because there's nobody making this stuff anymore, you're not going to have long. And if your medication requires a very careful balance, let's say you're on some kind of antipsychotic or some kind of drug that regulates your mental health and it requires constant monitoring, now there's nobody left to do that. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. And that doesn't always go well. In fact, a lot of people under a doctor's supervision have a hard time getting those kind of drugs balanced out to where they can get by on a day-to-day basis. If going into this situation you are already an alcoholic or addicted to recreational or prescription drugs, you're going to have a really hard time with this. You're fixing to kick in a detox process that you may not be able to deal with. And you and your loved ones are going to struggle to get through this. Without a regularly available line of product to keep you in balance, there's going to be a lot of suffering as your body tries to readjust to functioning without those chemicals in its system. And there's not an easy way to go through that process. You are going to find out exactly how going cold turkey really works. One thing that everybody's going to have to worry about is any injury or disease can be fatal. It doesn't take much for a simple injury to get infected and to get out of control. And if there are no medications to help keep things clean or to help you get past some kind of illness, then complications are almost guaranteed. Unless you already have a really strong immune system, people are going to struggle to get past simple illnesses like, let's say, common cold or the flu. There's a reason why in the past, simple illnesses have resulted in high numbers of deaths. Without the availability of medications, without access to doctors, these illnesses are just going to run their course, and then they're going to drag along friends like pneumonia. And unless you already have a working knowledge of medicine and how to treat these kind of things, then it's only going to get worse. Without the availability of first responders, fires and violence are going to rage out of control. A small fire in an uncontrollable environment will get out of hand very quickly and can take out entire communities in a matter of hours. We're going to have to return to bucket brigades. And if water's even available, it's going to be hard to get enough water to the scene to deal with a raging fire. And once riots and looting start, there's not going to be anybody to stop it. Each individual is going to be responsible for taking care of their own stuff. There's not going to be anybody to roll out the riot squad to come and put that down. Now, here's a particularly ugly thought that everyone's going to need to consider. If you have a wife, daughter, sister, even your mother, you're going to have to protect them 24/7 because predators are going to be out in force. Without an intact legal system, they are going to run rampant, and they will probably run in packs of like-minded people to ensure their success. You will never be allowed to let your guard down if people figure out that you have women in your home. The number of predators in the world today as it stands, with the laws that we have in place, is frightening. I spent a lot of years working in that environment and dealing with these kind of people, and they are more prevalent than you'll ever know. But once you take the restraints off, once you take out the ability for law enforcement to respond and to do something about it, there's going to be nothing to control these people. A predator will do whatever it takes to get what he's after. You might think that without pollution and traffic, that everything's going to be sunshine and roses, but that's just not the case. In fact, one of the problems that people will encounter is that bodies are going to start stacking up everywhere. Yeah, people will bury their own, but at some point, all of the random bodies that are going to start falling are just going to be left to lay where they are. At some point, even civilized groups are going to give up because they're going to realize they can't keep up with the workload. The first winter in cold environments will claim a large number of the population, and heating fuel and wood are going to become extremely scarce, which is going to make it even harder to survive. People are going to have to learn how to migrate with the birds to find livable temperatures. And unfortunately, not everybody in your group is going to be able to keep up with that kind of lifestyle, and some hard decisions are going to have to be made. Another thing you can guarantee is our enemies will invade. If it's a systemic attack that has caused the problem that created the SHTF situation, you can pretty much guarantee that they're already going to be here when that attack happens. So it's not going to take very long for them to roll across this country. There will already be organized plans and equipment in place to ensure their success, and while they will encounter guerrilla resistance, they'll be prepared for that too. So in addition to the day-to-day problems you're already going to be facing, you're probably going to have to deal with a military presence that's going to want to take everything you've got and make sure that you're not going to be a problem for them down the line. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is probably the worst. We have nuclear power plants all over the world. Those nuclear power plants require constant maintenance to prevent them from melting down, like what we saw in Chernobyl. Without people willing to go to work every day and maintain those plants, every nuclear power plant around the world is going to go into meltdown. It won't all happen at once. One of them will go full Chernobyl, and then right about the time you find you a nice spot upwind from the fallout, another one's going to go. And another. Eventually, most, if not all of the Earth is going to be covered by clouds, dropping acid rain and radiation. Safe food and water that were already scarce are going to become all but impossible to find. And radiation sickness is going to run rampant. And as we've already discussed, with no doctors, with no medication, there's going to be nothing you can do about it. So I said all that to say this: there's nothing wrong with preparing for the end of civilization as we know it. But with everything that's going to be added into the mix, there is a lot to prepare for. It goes beyond food storage, water, supplies. You're going to have to be able to solve all these other issues that are going to crop up. Things don't just become simpler because there's less people around and because technology has gone defunct. You have a lot of work to do. And my suggestion is, if you plan on surviving this, you better get busy. So, as always, prepare for the world that you live in, not the one you wish existed. We'll see you next time.